Hey guys, I'm here today to do something a little different. I don't usually do episode by episode commentaries or general thoughts and whatnot, but I thought about giving it a try instead of trying to condense it all into one video where I talk about the entire series, because I feel like I'm gonna miss something or that there's something in there that I want to talk about and might not always able to fit it in a full series review, if you know what I mean. So here's my first attempt at actually talking about episode by episode with Marvel's What If animated series, which is now premiering on Plus, like with Loki and Falcon and Winter Soldier and WandaVision. And What If is based on a Marvel comics of the same name, basically going into like a what if certain events happen this way, or what if characters did this thing or that thing, like if Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four, therefore calling it the Fantastic Five. And I wasn't sure at first what to think of the show when I saw the trailers for it, but after a few watches, I thought, well, maybe it could be worthwhile. I mean, for the most part, Marvel hasn't let us down before. So watching this episode, which is titled What If Captain Carter Was the First Avenger, it was really interesting to see how certain events unfolded, especially having seen the first Captain America movie, as I did a video on that recently, with this narration by the Watcher, voiced by Jeffrey Wright, who I think is a really solid casting choice for this character. Another one of those actors that I didn't realize it until now, that he just has the voice. In one specific way, very similar to Morgan Freeman. Talking about all these different parallel dimensions, all these different realities. What if certain things happen this way? And what if certain things went in this direction instead? All going towards the same endpoint. Acknowledging the main continuity where Steve Rogers became Captain America. But then he talks about how right before the experiment happens, Agent Carter decides to stick around right by the test capsule. And the one Hydra agent that shows up, exploding a bomb, causing Steve Rogers to be knocked back away. And at the last second, Agent Carter decides to jump into the test tube and get injected with the formula herself to preserve what they have left. And Steve is still the skinny kid from Brooklyn in this case. And I was really worried that they were going to do that, make Steve Rogers out to be a joke, but thankfully they actually gave him something worthwhile. They make him the Hydra Stomper. Howard Stark created an Iron Man or an Ironmonger-like suit in the middle of World War II. It's the Marvel Universe, so hey, I'll accept it. And some of the action that we see in here, when Captain Carter, or Captain Britain as I think people would call her, takes on those Hydra agents outside of Buckingham Palace, the animation style that's done in that sequence is really fluid and reminded me in some ways of the Into the Spider-Verse movie, except not in the same level of the stop motion effect that they had in that movie. And Haley Atwell, who returns to voice Peggy Carter, brings so much enthusiasm to this character and so much excitement. It's hard not to smile at that, especially since she's a very charming woman. And I know that for a fact because I met her a few years back at Baltimore Comic-Con. And I'm actually really pleased to see how many actors that got to come back here to voice their original parts. Sebastian Stan, Neil McDonough, Samuel L. Jackson, Jeremy Renner, even if it's just for one line. Dominic Cooper comes back as Howard Stark. Toby Jones, and even the actor who played the Red Skull in Infinity War and Endgame gets to show up here for a little bit. Even though I wish that they got Hugo Weaving to come back in some fashion, it was still a nice little touch. No Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, and if it's pretty clear from the trailer, Robert Downey Jr. isn't back as Tony Stark either. That's probably because they're in the mindset of, look, I did what I could, but I think it's time for me to rest. And hey, more power to them. So they got Josh Keaton instead to voice Steve Rogers, and he voices Peter Parker in The Spectacular Spider-Man. And he's also voiced other Marvel characters, mostly Spider-Man, throughout the course of Marvel properties and whatnot. And I actually think he's a fairly good substitute for Chris Evans. But seeing certain events transpire, like the train sequence, where Steve gets into the front of the train in the Hydra Stomper suit, and then he's supposedly presumed dead once the train blows up. And then how Captain Carter makes the ultimate sacrifice by fighting that big tentacle creature, which I'm assuming is the actual Hydra that they managed to recreate with the Tesseract left on the Earth by Odin and Thor. So she ends up going through the portal in an act of self-sacrifice, but ends up in the 21st century in the same fashion that Loki ended up in the first Avengers movie, where she runs into Nick Fury and Hawkeye, asking, "Where's Steve Rogers?" The war was over for almost 70 years. And as far as the romance between Steve and Peggy, which is the opposite approach in this situation, I really like the way how they handled it here. Just like in the first Captain America, very subtle and very charming and very endearing. Really, it's just condensed into like somewhat of a small montage, similar to the first Captain America, but I did expect that to happen in this case, and I was completely fine with it because this is like an anthology series, so you gotta give it some leeway in that respect. I did like hearing some of the sound effects that they use, like the vibranium effect from the shield, and I even heard the Mjolnir effect in here somewhere. I guess when she throws the shield at that one Hydra guy. I've gotten used to that noise for so long, I know it when I hear it. And that one action set piece where Captain Carter and Steve Rogers are fighting this squadron of German bombers, flying at these incredible speeds at this high altitude, it was a huge joy for the little kid inside me. So I wouldn't say this first episode is like a 10 out of 10, but it's a definitely solid start for the series, and it makes me curious as to what else they're going to show with the upcoming episodes, and seeing how Tony Stark would have gone in his journey had Killmonger met him instead, and how all the other actors that they've got, for the most part, coming back to voice their roles. Very solid start. I'm intrigued to see where else the show goes and seeing how it all connects to the MCU going forward. And it is considered part of this current phase that Marvel's in right now. So you definitely know there's some legitimacy to it. So I'm intrigued to see where it goes. As for you guys, comment below and tell me what your thoughts are, and I'll see you guys in the next video.